Ladies and gentlemen, look at that wall. That's 1979 for you. Yeah, I wouldn't be looking at 1979 if it were just about the prog releases. Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott. Today in the Prog Corner, I am answering that question. What's my favorite year of music? Of all of them. Yeah, and it certainly has nothing to do with prog rock, because if you look up there, it was not a great year. I mean, you had Steve Hackett with Spectral Mornings, and there were a few good records. You can see them there. Robert Fripp, Kansas, Bruford, Jethro Tull, The Wall. But 1979 was my favorite year for music, and none of you guys guessed it. I'm a little disappointed. I did my video about 1972 being the greatest year for prog, but I threw a teaser out there that there was actually one year that I preferred, and it is, in fact, 1979, and it has nothing to do with the prog albums that came out that year. Certainly has nothing to do with the world events. The year started with the deposing of the Shah of Iran. It ended with the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. You had Pope John Paul II meeting with Lech Walesa and the Solidarity Movement in Poland. You had the Pittsburgh Steelers winning the Super Bowl. You had Saddam Hussein coming into power. You had ESPN. Their very first broadcast was September 7th of that year. You had some really important songs. I'm going to talk about 5 songs right now real quick that came out in 79 that really made it such a integral year, such a transitional year, such a bizarre and strange year that changed everything. You had I Will Survive came out in 1979. The song that will last forever. The Village People put out YMCA in 1979. Gary Newman put out Cars in 1979. The Sugar Hill Gang scored a #1 hit with Rapper's Delight, thus changing the musical landscape forever. And the song that I would say was the most important in 1979 was also the first song ever played on MTV in 1980. Song came out in 79. Its video killed the radio star. 79 was great for pop singles, but it was a year that had some absolutely amazing albums, and none of these on the wall come even close to describing how great 1979 actually was. Besides the stuff I'm going to be looking at, Tom Petty came out with Damn the Torpedoes. Elvis Costello, Armed Forces. Blondie came out with Eat to the Beat. You had the first B-52's album. You had the first album from The Cure. It was just a great year all the way around. But I'm going to say that like 5 or 6 of my all-time favorite albums came out in 1979. Starting with, we talked about this a little bit with my Desert Island episode. It's The Clash. It's London Calling. It's a double album of nothing but greatness. Their first 2 albums are really, really good. Their 4th album was a triple album and kind of meandered a little bit. So if you only want one Clash album, obviously it's going to be London Calling. 1979 came in right at the end of 79. XTC Drums and Wires. Some Days my favorite album of all time. Certainly my favorite album from XTC. I did an XTC albums ranking, and clearly this was #1. It's perfect. It's amazing. The album cover's great. I've talked about this album at length, and I just love everything about it. I love XTC so much. They're kind of prog, I think they are. Also, 1979. You've seen the t-shirt, but have you listened to the record, kids? Yeah, it's Joy Division, and this album's amazing. They only did 2 albums. This was their first one. Closer was their second that came out in 1980. Then Ian Curtis offed himself, and Joy Division morphed into New Order, blah, blah, blah. This is where it started. This is such an amazing album. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard before. It just really was emblematic of just how transitional 79 was. I was listening to it to a ton of music that sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before. How about one of the greatest debut albums of all time? I'm going to put this right up there with King Crimson and the Court of the Crimson King for greatest debut albums in history. I'm talking about Gang of Four, Entertainment. Oh, good Lord, this album's amazing. The dissonance that these guys come up with, those strange dissonant chords, over the top of the real danceable, funky beat. Every song is real politically charged. These guys are kind of, commies, whatever, but they're just amazing. I wore the grooves off of this record when it first came out, and I still listen to it on a regular basis. Gang of Four's debut. But 1979 doesn't stop there. No, sir, kiddies. No, it does not. How about Talking Heads' Fear of Music? Oh, I love this album so much. Their third album, their second with Brian Eno producing. This was the record that kind of pointed the way for all the Afrobeat stuff that they would do later with Remain in Light. It was first started here with the Izimba track, but the rest of the songs on this album are just awesome. I love it. Speaking about perfect albums that came out in 1979, bands that put their third album out and shocked the world. How about Wire 154? Their first two albums were kind of post-punk, but this one, I don't even know what this is. I have no idea what kind of music this is, except that it's great. It's easily my favorite Wire album, but to me, Wire is one of those bands that can do absolutely no wrong. I love every album they've ever done, and they are kind of proggy. I will submit that Wire is prog-esque. I don't know. Your call. Another band with a lot of prog connections. We're talking about the Police. Yeah, there's prog connections with the Police. Absolutely. Andy Summers played in Soft Machine. Stuart Copeland played in Curved Air. I don't need to defend the greatness of the Police. This was their second album, Regatta de Blanc. It's my favorite album from them. It's a perfect album. I have to take a half a point away, though, because every single song fades out. Every single one of them. What a bummer, because some of these songs are just amazing. This is the best thing they ever did. I love the Police so much. But, that whole thing going on in 1979 where that power pop was coming back up. You had the Jam doing Setting Suns, and you had bands like The Shoes and the Jags and, the Only Ones and all this power pop stuff. I fell in love with it. There's a band called The Pop. The album Go. It's just amazing. More of that power pop stuff. Paul Collins Beat, 1979. Not to be confused with the English Beat. This album is just nothing but the best songs the Beatles never wrote. How about the Knack, People hate the Knack. But I tell you, listen to the drumming on this album. Dude Man was one of the most in-demand drummers in all of California. They recorded this whole album in one take. The musicianship is actually really great if you can get past the misogyny in some of the songs. But it's just fantastic. I really like it. I really like My Sharona Kill Me, all right? I think it's great. But, nobody signified that time probably as accurately as this band. The Cars, their second album, Candio, 1979. It's just absolutely amazing. It's even better than their first album, if that's even possible. More power pop mania. How about Cheap Trick's fourth album, The Dream Police? This one came out after Budokan, so they were riding high. They finally had a hit album on their hands, so this was an important record for them, and it did not disappoint. This is Cheap Trick at their absolute most Beatlesque, and it's terrific. It's a great album. I'm going to talk about one more artist and the greatness in 1979. 1979 was so great that this artist didn't put out one good album. He put out two great albums. Yeah, we're talking about Joe Jackson, Look Sharp. And then he followed it up with I'm the Man. Both of those albums are incredible. Yeah, Joe Jackson was considered by some to be a cheap Elvis Costello ripoff. I totally disagree. He had a better band, he had better songs, and he was taller. So there, Elvis. Yeah, that's my brief little wrap up of 1979 and why I think it was the greatest year of all for music. Yeah, the prog releases were down. Prog had, been going down a dark and dreary path. King Crimson had broken up. ELP put out Love Beach. Yes put out Tormato in 78. Things were looking bleak. Things were looking really bad in the prog world, but there was so much other great stuff to fill the void that I consider 1979 to be my favorite year in music. I'm surprised none of you guys guessed it, but that's just the weirdo that I am. That's the freak that I am. I don't even know if I'm going to post this video because it really has very little to do with prog, but I just wanted to share with you guys my thoughts on the greatest year in the history of music. Anyway, I will see you guys soon. Again, I am Scott from the Fire Note. We're here hanging out in the Prog Corner. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification button. Hit that like button. Do all that lame stuff so that we can keep growing this channel, so that I can keep staying motivated and doing this for you guys on a regular basis. I love you all. Have a great Monday, and I will see you freaks later.